Welcome to the December 15th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm David Morassutti, and I'm looking ahead to tonight's game against the New York Rangers and a little bit of history be made in the NHL this week. That and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On These podcast, your daily fix for all things Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm your host, David Morassutti from Sportsnet. Mike DeStefano is on vacation this week, so I am running things this week. But as always, we have great content for you. And just a reminder that Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so make sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. And just a reminder, you can always catch us up right here on YouTube in video form. So make sure you go subscribe and get those notifications whenever a new episode comes out. That is 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And the game tonight is the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the New York Rangers under the bright lights of New York City. Yes, the Leafs will be heading on the road to Madison Square Garden. Well, they're going to try to keep this roll going, ladies and gentlemen. A 7-0 victory over the Anaheim Ducks. The offense is firing right now. They're getting some contributions from deeper in the lineup. Now it's going to get a little tougher. There's still the tougher opponents are coming up in the schedule. December it's a pretty challenging month for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're going to be looking to keep that going against the Rangers. Now, I don't expect there to be any lineup changes. The Leafs are obviously on the road, so that could potentially change. Mac Hollowell was sent back down to the Toronto Marlies, which would make you think that Jordy Ben is close to making his return to the lineup. Whether or not he actually comes back, so soon remains to be seen. Right now, it's tough to really justify making any changes to the lineup, right? Joey Anderson will still remain in the lineup. He's taking advantage of the opportunity he's getting right now. Dennis Malgin will likely remain in that top 6 role with Nick Robinson out long term. So right now, the Leafs lineup is kind of working right now. So I don't see a reason really to change what the Leafs have been doing there. And this is actually an interesting time that the Leafs come into New York to play the Rangers, because I don't know if many of you saw it, but recently the Forbes website, it used to be a magazine, I don't think it's still a magazine, they came out with their annual franchise valuation list. So they list all the teams in every league based on how valuable they are. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, no surprise, are among the top teams in the NHL, but they're not number one. They haven't been for a very long time. It has been the New York Rangers over the last 8 years, so 8 straight years, that the New York Rangers have been listed as the top valued team in the NHL. They are currently at $2.2 billion. The Toronto Maple Leafs came in second at $2 billion, while the Montreal Canadiens were third and $1.85 billion. So now this is, and as it was mentioned in the Forbes article, this is the first time that NHL franchise values topped $1 billion, by marking a 19% increase from the 2021 average. The Lightning saw a huge jump. They actually went from 650 to $1 billion, which is pretty interesting. The Ottawa Senators, everyone knows what's going on with them and their sales. Their selling position where they're trying to attract new owners. Their valuation went up. The question here, though, is, and we know and I forgot to mention this on the show yesterday, but might as well do it today because it was a situation I was not happy about. The NHL Board of Governors had their meetings down in Florida. Gary Bettman came out and he said initially they were hoping that there would be a pretty decent jump in the salary cap from, you know, where it's currently at. They were hoping maybe 3 to 4 million. I remember them saying back in October. Now, what Gary Bettman is suggesting is because the players still owe escrow, they still owe money to the owners. The salary cap might just go up $1 million again. And I was like, when I heard that, I'm like, are you serious? Like, are we still in this position where where the league salary cap can barely go up? And you can't help but notice that, so many teams have had to sign players to long-term extensions. You look at Colorado, what they just did with Nathan McKinnon. You don't think they're not too thrilled about the fact that the salary cap might not go up as much as they thought? This is where the Toronto Maple Leafs found themselves when they had to make a lot of these tough decisions about the salary cap because it was only going up by $1 million. Now, the pandemic has certainly played a big role in that, and that's been the big selling point in terms of why the salary cap hasn't gone up. But I thought the NHL was doing pretty good and was getting on track to getting past what the pandemic had done. Clearly it's not, and they also said that part of the problem here is the Canadian dollar being at a lower value has hurt revenues for the Canadian NHL teams. We've heard that before, but the NHL is also bringing in new revenue. You're not telling me that the jersey ads, they're saying that the jersey ads aren't bringing a big aren't making a big dent. I mean, then why are you selling jersey ads if you're not making a big profit off of it in the first place? I know it's revenue and you'll take the revenue where you can get it, but how are you not capitalizing on the fact that a lot of fans were not happy about the jersey ads? You're not capitalizing on that and telling these sponsors, you want to get on an NHL jersey, you got to pony up a little bit here. The helmet ads, these digital board ads we're seeing during games, which I hate personally. I'm a person that notices those things, especially when people point it out. I haven't been a fan of them. I understand why the NHL is doing it. We've seen the painted ads on the ice. I'm just having a hard time understanding how the NHL is telling teams, or and if I'm the NHLPA, I'm wondering what is going on here. How are the revenues not going up the way that they should be? I'm struggling to really understand this right now. And this is not about the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is about the NHL in general. And if you're an NHL player who's looking to get paid, okay, and stay with the team that you're playing with and looking to get what believe you were expecting to get paid, it's a little tough to hear that the salary cap is not going to be going up so much, and that's going to change what teams do in the offseason. So this isn't just a Toronto Maple Leafs thing. A lot of top teams are going to have to make some tough decisions because if the salary cap doesn't go up too much, that impacts what they can do. And I'm sure the Toronto Maple Leafs are one of those teams. When Mike gets back, we'll likely have to discuss this because this will impact how teams handle the NHL trade deadline as well. That's how it's always been, and we'll see how that happens. So, not a great thing to see if you're a hockey fan person. I think the NHL needs to be a little more proactive right now in trying to increase revenues. So, we're gonna break down our keys to the game against the Rangers, what the Leafs need to do to keep their strong play alive. But before we do, let's talk about one of our show sponsors, and that is today's title sponsor, and that is betonline.net, the number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, college bowl season, basketball, World Cup, hockey. BetOnline has it all covered. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at betonline.net as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti here. No Mike DeStefano for the rest of the week. He is on vacation. He will be back on Monday. or at least he should be back on Monday. Mike, your vacation's over on Monday. You're coming back. No if, ands, or buts. Even if you're still away, I'm going to get you on this podcast. So the Toronto Maple Leafs will hit the road. They are going to be in New York to play the Rangers, who have been disappointing a little bit this season. I'm not going to lie. I thought if you anybody here who listened to my pre-show predictions, I said the Rangers would be a Stanley Cup contender. Right now, they have looked anything but Stanley Cup contender worthy to start the season. That does not make me look very good, which means I'm not very happy with the New York Rangers right now. Which also means, because the Rangers haven't been playing to their capability, they're going to be doing what they can to make life a living heck on the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's the way it goes, ladies and gentlemen. So the Rangers right now sit 5th in the Metropolitan Division. They sit behind the Islanders, the Penguins, the Hurricanes, and the Devils, who have been the biggest surprise in the NHL. Nobody could have expected the Devils to be as good as they have been. The Rangers actually are coming off a pretty impressive win over the Devils. They had to overcome a 2-0 deficit to win the game, and they eventually won that game in overtime. So they're getting a bit better, themselves. Their home record hasn't been great. They're 6-6-4 on the season. The Leafs have been 8-3-3 on the road this season. And we know the Leafs right now, they got to keep on pace with the Boston Bruins. They're 3 points behind. Boston has 2 games in hand. So Leafs aren't in a position where they can take any team lightly, and they got to make sure that they're staying on top of all these opportunities that they're going to try to get back into the pretty much get back into the South here. The Bruins will actually be playing the Kings. So, that's a pretty, they got a pretty easy schedule if you look at the next few games. They have the Kings, the Bruins play the Kings, they play the Blue Jackets, then they got the Panthers, then they got a bit of a tougher stretch with the Panthers, Jets, and Devils. But those 2 games right now, that those are games that means that the Bruins should be able to keep pace with the Leafs, or at least if the Leafs slip up in any of their upcoming games, they're gonna get a little bit of separation in the standings. So Toronto's just gotta do what they keep doing, and that's winning right now. They're obviously coming off that 7-0 impressive victory over the Anaheim Ducks, where clearly they just didn't look very the Ducks just didn't look good, and the Leafs took advantage. The Leafs had a not so great first period, but second and third period, it was all Leafs for the rest of the game. So Matt Murray gets the start in New York. A little surprising, I'm not going to lie, just because Ilya Samsonov is coming off another shutout. But it's also clear the Leafs' next game is on the road in Washington. You have to think that the Leafs want to save Samsonov for that game against his former team, first game in Washington against his former team. So I think that's likely what's playing into that decision. You also want to keep that healthy rotation. So the Leafs don't have back-to-backs for the next little bit too. So it's not like they have to make decisions about back-to-backs impacting how their goaltending situation plays out, which leads us to the keys of the game. One of them being, let's see if Matt Murray can have a better performance. Look, the Leafs still beat the Calgary Flames, but Matt Murray didn't exactly have his best outing. He has been really good. This is not a slander Matt Murray moment, but Ilya Samsonov has looked a little bit better lately. Just by virtue of he looked better against the Ducks. I'm sure maybe if Matt Murray was in that game, he would have looked better. Looked pretty good as well. So maybe I'm just looking a little bit too much into a game against the Calgary Flames that the Leafs, got caught being a little bit back and forth, with that one. So, Matt Murray, let's see if he can have a bounce back game here. When it comes to the New York Rangers and how they've been playing, It's kind of tough to gauge really what the Rangers kind of are right now. They had that overtime. They've been their offense has been kind of streaky. They've had some good wins, good moments, and they've had some not so great moments. But Artemi Panarin continues to be the guy that leads the charge there. 35 points in 30 games. Mika Zibanejad, he leads the team in goals with 15 in 30 games. Chris Kreider still doing his thing. He has 14 goals in 30 games. And Vincent Trocheck hasn't been too bad. He's third on that list with 10 goals. So yeah, you're looking at that top line of Panarin, Zibanejad, and I believe it would be I'm trying to remember now the third player on that line. They kind of been mixing. I know they've been kind of mixing the lines a little bit here, so that probably explains why. I know that they went through a big shakeup going against the Devils here, so I think it's Barkley Goodrow on that top line. Then it's Lafreniere, Chittle, and Kako, kind of the kids on the on one line, and you got Kreider, Trocheck, and former Toronto Maple Leaf Jimmy Vesey on that third line. So if I'm the Leafs, they are the better team going into this game. Just basically with how everything has been going, they look like the better team on paper. They've been playing better, so they should be the favorite. They are the favorite going into this game, and they need to continue to play like they are favorites, right? Don't give the game to the Rangers. Let the Rangers have to push and work hard to win the game. So, um, I would say that needs to be the mantra of this Leafs team going into this game. Just continue to do what you're doing because it's working. You just have to continue to get the scoring lower in the lineup. That was the big thing. You know, against the Ducks, you saw Kerfoot score a couple. Bunting scored a goal again. You saw Engvall score. You saw Joey Anderson score. Marner, he's got to see if he can continue his point streak. I mean, once you're getting into that 25 range, you're starting to get into the new modern day. I know there was a discussion about Matt Sundin. Yes, he had 30, but it wasn't with the Leafs. It was with the Nordiques, and it was also before the so-called dead puck era. But 30 games is still an impressive scoring streak, especially because Matt Sundin was only 22 when he had that streak. As it was pointed out in the YouTube comments, I do read the comments, so I do appreciate everybody bringing in that discussion. I thought it was a great discussion about the streak. Uh, Obviously, that will be a top storyline to watch. See whether or not Marner can continue the scoring streak, and the Leafs will try to continue their streak of just keep putting up points in the standings. They got to keep pace. The fact that they've been so good and yet they're still trailing the Bruins just shows how strong the Bruins have been from the start of the season and how their hot start has been going. But in an impressive fashion, the Leafs, just how bad they were by their standards in October and how good it's been, then they've been able to at least bridge a little bit of a gap between third place. I'm not too worried about where the Leafs stand in terms of the Atlantic. I just want to see if they can try to keep pace with the Bruins because that finishing first in the Atlantic will mean a lot come playoff time. And I know everything that's going on right now with the Leafs won't mean much until playoffs, but these little things can make a difference as we have come to see. All right, so those are my keys to the games. We'll see. And if you got any keys to the games you want to add, make sure you get those into the comment section. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this game and what you're looking forward to seeing. I do want to talk about something non-Leafs related that is happening in the NHL, and that is what we're seeing from Alexander Ovechkin, scoring 800 career goals. I watched that game. My eyes were glued to it. I am big on historical moments in the NHL. We don't get to see moments like this very often. So when you get the chance to watch it, you have to watch it. So I'm going to discuss a little bit more of that on the other side. But before we do, let me tell you about our another show sponsor, and that is the NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out. You think of calling for a ride. Now you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? Even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to stay safe and to make sure that we continue to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, plan it safe, and plan ahead to get a ride home. It only takes one mistake to change a life or somebody else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Welcome back into Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti here, and this what we're seeing in the NHL this season. We're seeing some incredible individual performances. Tage Thompson has been. Mike was big on that when we were talking about the Atlantic Division, and obviously the Sabres have obviously we would expect to see a little bit more from the Sabres based on Tage Thompson's play, but they haven't. Alex Ovechkin, we've been on that watch in terms of, can he reach Wayne Gretzky? Can he potentially become the NHL's all-time goal scoring leader? When you see the number for Wayne Gretzky, you think, man, that's so tough. But then when you see what Ovechkin is doing right now, you can't stop to think that he's not losing his touch. So Wayne Gretzky, we know, holds the record at 894 career goals. His points total of 2,857, that's never being touched. Not even close. You have to have extremely great longevity, and I just don't see how any player is going to catch that. Personally, 1,963 career assists. I think that one's pretty safe as well. But the goals, that was the last one I would ever expect to see a player try to break. 894. Alex Ovechkin is down 94 goals away. And he's only we're not even reached the halfway point of the season. He has 20 goals in 30 games this season, or 31 games this season with Washington. And there's no reason why he can't get 50 this season. If he actually reaches 50 goals this season, that would make it 10 seasons with 50 goals. That would set a new NHL record. Gretzky and Bossy did it 9 times in their career. That's how good of a goal scorer Alex Ovechkin has been. And he's doing it at a point in time where goal scoring is tough to come by. So, I mean, I know some people have a love-hate relationship with Alex Ovechkin, but we haven't seen a player, first off, hit 800 goals since Wayne Gretzky did it all back, all those years ago. I wasn't even really around to experience what Wayne Gretzky was doing. That's why I'm really at awe of what Ovechkin is doing right now. He's one goal away from tying Gordie Howe for the all-time record, second all-time. Then he can obviously go past that. When I saw that it was against the Blackhawks, the Capitals were playing the Blackhawks, he was 3 away, and I saw Peter Mrazek was in net, and I'm like, he's so doing it. He got 2 goals almost right away, too. He scored the first goal 24 seconds into the game, scored the second one not too long after. When you got 2 goals and you're pushing for a moment like that, it's almost like it's bound to happen. It's like Mitch Marner's point streak. Players understand it. So it was nice of Ovechkin to get to 800. It would be nice. The Capitals are at home against the Dallas Stars. It would be pretty incredible if he were to, move past Gordie Howe for 2 reasons. So he doesn't do it against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. It would be nice if the Leafs weren't on the other end of history in that regard. But yeah, Alex Ovechkin, you have to commend him for what he's doing this season. I don't know if we're going to see another goal scorer. Austin Matthews is putting up goals. but he's not doing it like Ovechkin has done. Maybe that could change. That could obviously change. We probably never expected Ovechkin to be a goal scorer that could, break Gretzky's record. So I'm uh, I'm very curious to see how far the Leafs can take this. We'll see how long Ovechkin can take this, and we'll see if the Leafs are on the receiving end potentially of some history. We'll see. They got to deal with the New York Rangers first, which means I will be back discussing the. I'll be breaking down the game for Friday's episode. I do have a guest scheduled. I'm not going to give away names just in case things happen. I don't like to tease too much. You know, this is time where everybody's sick. I've had a few people. I reached out. Unfortunately, they weren't feeling well to do a podcast. When you're under the weather, it's really tough to do it for to do a show like this. So I appreciate those who have offered help. So I do have a guest tentatively booked after the Rangers game. So we'll be back at that point. I want to thank you guys for listening to the podcast today and for supporting the show. You can subscribe to Locked On Leafs wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you're telling all your friends to subscribe, especially to YouTube. We're over 2,300. I am very happy about that, guys. Let's get to 2,500. Let's stay ahead of those the Locked On Canadians. I don't want to see Locked On Canadians get past Locked On Leafs. That would make me very, very not so happy. So continue to support. Make sure you're telling all your friends to support us as well. We'll be back with another episode on Friday where we'll break down the game against the Rangers and tee up the weekend for the Leafs. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.